Thank you everyone for coming today. We're excited to have all of you here. We know that it's busy summer and you have a few other things going on in life, so we're glad that you're able to join us today. A few housekeeping items. First off, my name is Kelsey Nager and I'm the Employer Experience Coordinator in the Career Development Center. So I work with employers like Allison to have them interact with you in now virtual setting, typically in on-campus interviews, career fairs, info sessions like these. So we're excited to have Allison here today to talk about E&J Gallo Wine and best practices during a hiring freeze. A few other housekeeping items. For CRP points, we'll be utilizing your registration form that included your student ID number, as well as the Zoom usage report at the end. So no need to do anything else for that, but please do give a few days for it to show up on your portal because we have to manually input everything right now virtually. If you have any questions, please email me and we can follow up with that. And then also in follow-up, I'll be emailing you Allison's information to reach out to her and any job opportunities that they're hiring for right now and their website as well. So you'll have all that information in follow-up. So I'll kick it off to Allison and we're excited to hear what you have.
Cool. Thank you, Kelsey. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I just want to start off by saying I hope you and your family and friends are all staying safe and healthy during this time that we are in. And I am looking forward to hopefully giving you some helpful best practices during a hiring freeze. So like Kelsey mentioned, my name is Allie Smith and I am with E&J Gallo Winery. And really before we dive in, I would love to just give a quick introduction about myself so we all know each other. For those of you who have never met me before on campus. So I did graduate from Chico State in 2016 and I was an agriculture business major. And I'm actually celebrating my 4th year with Gallo tomorrow. It's my work anniversary. So it goes by really fast, but yes, I've been with Gallo for 4 years now. And I started with Gallo right after graduation as a sales rep in San Diego. And then from there, I was a district manager in the Inland Empire area. And right now I'm living in Huntington Beach as a recruiting manager, and that's my current position. So I'm in the 3rd phase of the Sales Leadership Development Program, which I'll talk all about today. So not only are we going to go over best practices during a hiring freeze, but I'm going to give a lot of information about the different career opportunities that we have as well. And I'm going to talk about LinkedIn today. So here is my QR for my LinkedIn account. For those of you who have never used a QR before, I know they're really popular now with COVID to try to be careful with not touching menus and any flyers. But all you have to do is simply put your camera phone up to the QR and it'll pull up my LinkedIn account as well. So that's a little bit about me, and I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. I know all of us don't live in San Diego, so feel free to type in the chat where you're tuning in from today. I'd love to hear where you're at. Great, and then some housekeeping from me. So here's another QR code. You're gonna see a few of these today. This is how I can get your contact information. I'd love to know how many people are on the call, and this is gonna be really important if you are interested for our opportunities that we have. So I know it's a long summer break until we'll be doing virtual events in the fall. So this is, again, a QR code, so feel free to put it up to your camera phone and enter in your contact information. And then I send a reminder email when I post the application later this summer. Great, and I know it takes a second, so here's that QR code if you do need it again. So what we're gonna cover today. So first, I'm gonna go over best practices during a hiring freeze. So just a disclaimer here, Gallo right now, we're not going through a hiring freeze. We will be recruiting for open positions. We really recruit year round, but I'm touching on this topic today since a lot of other companies are going through a hiring freeze during the pandemic. So I'm here to give you some helpful tips for what you can do to stay proactive and really make yourself the best candidate for the role when companies are hiring again. So we're gonna go over some tips for virtual networking and how to land an informational interview, and then how to sell yourself in a virtual interview. So even though companies are going through a hiring freeze, they might be moving forward with interview processes still and not actually going through with the offers until they're ready to do so. So I'll give you some tips for how to sell yourself in that virtual format. And then lastly, I'll give you a company overview for those of you who have maybe never heard of Gallo before, and then I'll touch on those different sales leadership opportunities we have as well. And if you do have any questions, I know we have almost 30 people on the call today, so I just ask that you take note of them, and then Kelsey and I will be doing a Q&A at the end of the call as well. So let's dive in. First, what is a hiring freeze? So you might have heard this term before, so here to clear the air on what this means, but ultimately it means when a company halts the process of hiring and onboarding new employees. So each company can really treat this differently. They might halt the recruiting process altogether, so they're not doing first round interviews, second rounds, and completely stopping with the outreaching process, or they're continuing to do first rounds, connect with candidates, but they're not going to actually extend offers until they're ready to do so. And really the hiring freeze can be short or long depending on what the reason why the company is going through a hiring freeze. So as of right now with COVID-19 and a pandemic, it makes sense why companies are really putting a pause on doing some hiring. And really the reasons can vary from multiple different causes. So it can be from product failure, a recession, just taking precautions as well. But ultimately it means no matter what the reason, they're currently not hiring. So best practices during a hiring freeze. This is you could say Galloism, something that I would always a term I would say to my team when I was a district manager, but I would always say control the controllable. So in sales, we can't control people's answers. We can't always get a yes all the time. So you want to control what you can. So this is also related to what you can do during hiring freeze, and you really need to understand that there's not really anything recruiters can do to change the fact that their company is going through a hiring freeze. So just remain patient. No need to get upset. There's no point in that, and usually nothing we can do to change it. The communication is really key. So this goes with companies that are going through those hiring freezes right now and not. It's a great way to stay in touch by using LinkedIn, just checking in if you do have that recruiter's email, checking in to say that you're still interested when they do have opportunities available, and then also following the company on Instagram. So almost all companies now have Instagram accounts. This is a great way to see what that culture looks like as well. And then don't be afraid to ask questions. So if you're interested in working for a company, whether it be an internship or full-time opportunity, if you add that recruiter on LinkedIn that maybe you met at a career fair this prior semester, don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I'm really interested in the opportunities you have to offer. I'd love to know if those are available immediately or in the future. I really want you to position it in your mind like an athlete would do when they're out of season. So really they make the most of their time to plan, prepare, and practice to perform. So I really want you to position it in your mind like this and really take advantage of the time that you do have right now. We probably can say that we all have a little bit more free time since we're not able to gather in large groups and be as social as we were. So think of this as a time to really sharpen your skills and prepare for when you are in that game time for the interview for your dream job. And some best practices here. So you really want to make sure that you are making the most of your time in planning. So if you're someone that is unsure of the industry that you'd like to pursue, take this time this summer to really do your research. Schedule an informational interview with the recruiter, which I'll go over today, some different ways to reach out. Also research different companies on Glassdoor. So if you're someone that isn't quite sure what they want to do, totally okay. Take the time to research and see, okay, what industries I see myself working in and where would I be best fit? And then also prepare. So I hear it multiple different times from students that it's a pain to edit a resume and it takes so much time. You do all these different changes and then hear someone else's feedback that you still need to make more changes. So this time right now is a great time to edit that resume and ask for feedback from additional multiple sources. So you can ask that from a recruiter. Maybe if you have an informational interview at the end of the call, ask if there's any feedback they have on your resume, or the Career Center as well is a great resource. And I highly suggest if you are looking for virtual interview tips, we'll hit on some today, but there's great resources on YouTube. And also, I suggest to practice mock interviews with a friend or roommate, whoever you have around that can do a virtual interview with you. Use that same platform. So if they're using Zoom, make sure to practice with Zoom. And then perform. So be productive in the moment. Get ready for that time, like I mentioned, when you're going to be in game time for that interview opportunity. Set different goals. So if you're working on your resume, you want 3 different forms of feedback, 3 different feedback sources. Make sure to set that goal, by the end of the summer, or if you'd like to schedule a number of different informational interviews, make sure to set that goal for yourself. And even though you're not performing in an interview, that does not mean that you need to stop progressing. So make sure to make yourself the best candidate for the job when those companies are hiring again. And of course, now there's different types of networking, but because of the pandemic, we really only have digital or online networking to work with, of course, right? Because face-to-face networking is no longer happening since all recruiting events have been moved to a virtual format. So really now we have Instagram or Facebook, email, phone, virtual video calls as well, or LinkedIn. So I do want to give you some positive news right now. I don't know about you, but we've been hearing a lot of negative news, right? With the pandemic, I feel like it gets worse and worse every day. So I'm here to give you some positive news today and let you know that most networking before the pandemic was already done in a virtual format. So everyone can have some peace of mind and know that we're just continuing to network in a digital format. And that's how it always was. So my preferred networking platform is LinkedIn. I think that's a great way to get the ball rolling and connect with a recruiter. And then from there, you can schedule that phone call or video chat as well. Great. And then really there's 2 different buckets when we think about professional networking. So when we think about social media, we want to make sure to keep it clean and professional, of course. You want it to be cohesive with your more professional networking platforms and accounts. So if you question it, probably shouldn't post it. That's a great rule of thumb. Employers do look at this. I don't want to freak you out and make you think that employers are out there looking at every single Instagram picture you have on your account. We're not doing that. But if you do have a virtual interview scheduled, I always do a quick search on Google of your first and last name because I want to put a face to the name. So if your LinkedIn account is not the first thing that comes up, I might take a quick glance at your Instagram account just to put a face to the name so I know who I'm meeting with. Google yourself. This is another great method to do to see what's out there about you. And I also suggest to follow the company on Instagram. So like I mentioned, most companies have these accounts and it's a great way to see, okay, what's their culture look like? Some recent hires as well. And always keep a opt-in LinkedIn account with a professional headshot. And I highly suggest to have that headshot. And this is even more important than it was in the past because of the pandemic. And since all recruiting events will most likely be in a virtual setting, you really want to make sure to put a face to the name. So if you do have that opportunity to interview, the recruiter can remember who you are. And then if you do have any leadership experience or any role that you want to make sure to highlight, make sure to put that in your signature. And then always have a professional email name. So I always suggest to use your school account email as well. Great. And then here are some questions that I get pretty commonly about LinkedIn. So here to clear the air. So first question I get a lot is, who should I reach out to on LinkedIn? So I really suggest to reach out to a recruiter that you've previously made contact with. So that's why LinkedIn can be a great resource to stay in touch with those you've already met. So say you met a recruiter at a career fair and you're interested in the internship opportunity, but you weren't eligible because you weren't 21 yet. Reaching out on LinkedIn is a great way to reconnect and say, hey, I'm eligible now that I'm 21. I'd love to hear more information. And then if you don't know, already have a connection with the recruiter on LinkedIn, feel free to do some research to say, who do I know that works for the company? Do I have a friend that works there, or a professor, or any faculty on campus that would be willing to connect me? So this is another highly suggested comment that I have as well. So now that all recruiting events will be on a virtual format, you want to make sure that if you do have someone that can endorse you, that knows that recruiter, I highly suggest to make sure that person facilitates an introduction, since we won't be meeting in person on campus. And then I also get asked, how often should I be reaching out? So a good rule of thumb, you always want to reach out with a purpose, right? So you don't want to be reaching out to a recruiter every week to say, hey, what are your weekend plans? You want to make sure that you're reaching out with questions, or if you want to schedule an informational interview, or just saying that you're interested in the role and you can't wait to apply. And typically I would follow up after 2 weeks if you don't hear anything back. If you don't, try email, any other different method, or reach out to someone else that works for the company. And then I also get asked, what should I put on my profile? So you don't have to put every single thing that's on your resume. I suggest putting your major accomplishments. So what's most impressive about your experience and what do you want to highlight? Put that on your LinkedIn account. And you want to make sure, I always highly suggest, and this is similar with other companies, you want to make sure to highlight your leadership experience, because what you've done on campus is a great indicator of what you could do for a company. And I also suggest, if you're interested in our opportunities, to highlight any sales experience you have. So it's not a requirement. We have really thorough sales training, but if you do have that, it's something that would make your application and your LinkedIn account more competitive. Great, so now I'm gonna go into some specifics of what you could say on LinkedIn when you're reaching out. So when you're initially reaching out, typically you only have a few characters to work with, so when you make that message short. But here's one example. So, hi Mike, it was great to connect with you again at the career fair this semester. Let me know if you're available for a 10-minute phone call or quick Zoom meeting. I'd like to learn more about the opportunities your company offers and your experiences. Cheers, Allie Smith. So we work in the wine industry. Cheers is very fitting for your signature when you're reaching out, but if you're reaching out to any other industries, feel free to change this message as you see it's the best fit. And another example is, hi Mike, I am very interested in your family-oriented culture and sales careers at E&J Gallo Winery. Do you have a time to connect on a 10-minute phone call or Zoom meeting? I'd like to learn more about your experiences throughout your 22 years at Gallo. Cheers, Allie Smith. So these are two great examples. The first one is to lock down the informational interview. The second one shows that this person really did the research on their LinkedIn account, shows that they've been with the company for 22 years and they're interested to have the informational interview and follow up. So two great examples here. And then really to break down the specifics of when you are scheduling that informational interview, just went over examples, but really what you'd want to do from start to finish is first do your research. So make sure to research the company on Glassdoor. Fairy Godboss is a similar platform like Glassdoor, but this is for women, to make sure that you'd be the proper candidate and that you're number one interested. Number two, reach out on LinkedIn. So like I mentioned, LinkedIn is my preferred method. I would say the same for a lot of other recruiters as well. And go ahead and schedule that date for the informational interview. And then prepare with that elevator pitch. So even though it's a less formal interview setting, since it's just informational interview, I would still prepare to have that elevator pitch down. Because when they ask, tell me a little bit about yourself, that's your time to shine. And give your 30-second commercial about yourself. So I would really have that prepared and at least 3 questions to ask the recruiter. And if you are interested after the call, whether it be a phone call or a video chat, if you are interested at that point, I highly suggest to say, I really appreciated our time today that you took to speak with me. I'd love to know how I can apply and what the next steps would be. That's a great way to show the interest and take next steps to go ahead and put your application in. And then step 5, so always follow up with a thank you, even though it's informational interview, that recruiter did take time out of their day. So whether it be on email or LinkedIn, make sure to send a message. Great, so now I wanna briefly touch on what the elevator pitch should look like. So I mentioned that simple question of, tell me about yourself. It seems like a really easy question, but this is your time to shine. So make sure to give some key items about yourself. You want this to be a very strong opening statement describing who you are. And I really picture it the best way, saying that 30-second commercial about yourself. So you don't need to get everything out. That's something that would come up in conversation through questions in that informational interview. But this is just highlights of your most impressive things on your resume, and you're describing them in a different way. So an example would be, I'm a leader on the USD campus by XYZ, whatever you have that's most impressive about your experience. And I'm looking to grow my sales experience through a summer internship. So it does not take a long time to say, and it keeps that interviewer interested. Okay, great. Allie just explained to me XYZ about her experience. Now I'm interested to hear more, and it's a conversation starter. So like I mentioned, I would keep it to 2 to 3 different examples to validate your highlights of why you're a great fit for the role, and show them an idea of why you deserve the job. So again, it shows that you are interested in the role and why you'd be a great fit. Okay, great. So now we're going to segue and now talk about interview tips, and then we'll go into specifics of what you should do in a virtual interview. So
could you quickly describe the difference between an informational interview and a normal interview?
Yes, I will. First question. Thank you for who asked the first question. So with an informational interview, this would be typically you reaching out to a recruiter to say, I would love, 15 to 20 minutes of your time to hear more about the company, and you'd want to ask the recruiter any questions that you have from your research. A formal interview is when you would be invited by the recruiter to interview. Typically there's 1 to 2 interviews, and this would be formal setting. They have questions prepared to ask you, but I think the best way to describe the difference between the informational one is that you are really asking the interviewer questions about the company, about the job description. So I think it's a great way to weave in your experience and say, hey, this is an informational interview, but this is show why you'd be a good fit if you are granted the opportunity to interview. Good question. Any other questions at this point, Kelsey, that you'd like to answer before we dive in?
Yep, all good. I just wanted to make sure that got clarified before you move forward.
Perfect. Great. And then with interviewing tips. So as you can see, these are more general, and then we'll touch on virtual interviewing tips as well. So you're really going to treat a virtual interview just as you would a virtual interview just as you would an in-person interview. But you want to prepare for the typical question. So there's that trick question. Again, tell me about yourself. Seems really easy, but that's your time to give that elevator pitch, and be prepared for these questions, not just the tough questions. So I've seen multiple times in an interview where a candidate prepares for those really tough behavioral questions, and then when I ask the first question of tell me about yourself, they totally black out and forget everything they've rehearsed for in the interview. So make sure to prepare for simple questions like this as well. And then research the company and make sure you have those 3 questions prepared. Know your strengths and your weaknesses as well, and how have you been working on those weaknesses now? And give specific examples when you think about why you've been successful, the different leadership experience you've had, and any challenges you've had in work or school. So when we think about specifics of how you can answer this, you might have heard of this before. Say yes or no in the chat if you've heard of STAR method, but I really like this method because it's a great way to show your beginning, middle, and end when you answer a behavioral question. So situation, task, action, result. For example, if I was asked, tell me about a time that you faced conflict and what was the outcome, I could respond back as a student and say, this last month I had a final group project, and it was really vital for my final grade in the course. I needed to pass the class to graduate. And we were a week away from the final project being due, realized that the assignment was not getting done. We had a ton of work to do. So I stood up as a leader and assigned different tasks to my teammates on the group project. We were able to accomplish the project. The final result was getting a B on the final project. I got a B in the class, not really the grade I was looking for. But I learned that time management and staying organized early on with projects is key to be successful, and so I can get that grade that I'm looking for. So really specific, I gave that beginning, middle, and end, but I didn't take, over a long period of time to answer that question. So if recruiters have other questions, if they have additional time, they will ask you that. But if you take a really long time to answer questions, they will run out of time and not be able to get a really good understanding of you and your experience. So I hope this method all helps you out. Great, so now let's dive into specific virtual interviewing tips. So number one, look at the camera, not the screen. I'm gonna be so honest with you all and let you know that this was the biggest challenge for me when I started doing virtual interviews and meetings, because I like to see your faces on the screen. And it's okay to glance down here and there and see, who's asking a question. What are the facial expressions of those on the call? But really make sure that you're looking at the camera, because it shows that eye contact and engagement. And dress the part. So you want to dress to impress if you do have that interview. I would say business professional. You're also going to feel more confident when you're doing this as well. Prepare your surroundings. So make sure to have, as much as you can, a distraction-free background. I know on Zoom, there's different features where you can have different digital backgrounds, which make it nice. So those can't see the inside of your house. So those are great options as well. And then always have that professional headshot as well. And practice really makes perfect. So again, make sure to practice with a friend, anyone that you can with. And then any other programs on your computer, I highly suggest to close those out so you don't have any distractions, or make sure to silence your phone as well. Great, so just some last few tips here. Use your notes. So a great thing about having a virtual interview, you can have notes in front of you, and that recruiter has no idea because they can't see, what's in front of you. So make sure to use your notes, but don't rely too much on them. So you don't want to have paragraphs written out about what you're going to say to questions, but you can have some, brief words to say, okay, if I get asked a question about when did I manage conflict, or when was I needing to meet a deadline and really stay organized and have great time management, you can refer to specific examples that you're going to use STAR method with. And then really avoid a "can you hear me now" situation. So make sure to get all the technical difficulties smoothed out ahead of time, make sure audio is working, and make sure the interviewer is engaged. So if your interviewer is 30 to an hour, you want to make sure that that interviewer is with you, right? So you want to make sure if you're taking a while to explain a question, you're asking questions back at them. So you're making sure that they're engaged as well, because they also have other distractions going on with their cell phones in front of them. They might have their email notification coming up at the same time. And then lastly, follow up. So equally as important as an in-person interview, you want to make sure to send that thank you email to thank them for the time. I would say same thing for a informal interview as well, for the informational one. Great, so some key takeaways. Always dress to impress and be professional. So again, I would suggest business professional. Know your story and be prepared to tell it. So be competitive, use that elevator pitch as well, and make sure to prepare it. Show your personality and find a commonality. So don't be a robot, even though it's virtual, feels like you might be talking to a screen. Show that personality. It's still an interview, even though it's virtual. It should be taken seriously, but don't be afraid to show, who you are and why you'd be a good fit for the role. Incorporate the company values into your answers. So this goes along with doing your research, but try to weave those into your answers. And then always use STAR methods so you can be specific when answering questions. And now is really the time to show that you've done your research. So that's when you can show everything you've known thus far about the company, and when you're bringing it up in conversation. Then lastly, practice makes perfect, and make sure you use great posture and be confident when you are speaking as well. Was there anything else that I don't have on key takeaways before we dive into company info that you've learned today that you did not know? If you want to put it in the chat or take yourself off mute and share, I'd love to hear. Let's see, we have one comment so far. Okay, well, if anyone comes up with anything, we can talk about it during the Q&A. Great, so now we're gonna dive into company info, and then we'll also go over our sales leadership programs as well. So E&J Gallo Winery was established in 1933 by Ernest and Julio Gallo, and today we are the world's largest winery, and we are family owned. So right now, we are on the 4th generation of Gallo family members that are working for the winery, and we are fully integrated. So if you're a business major, you might have heard this before, but this term, but we really, from growing our own grapes from the bottling process in Modesto all the way to the sales and marketing team. We're doing everything in-house, so all under the Gallo umbrella. And then a bit about our recognition. So I'm a big advocate for Glassdoor. Highly suggest to get on there if you don't use this as a resource, but we have numerous different awards on here. So for 4 years in a row, we were a top 50 company to work for. And then also on Glassdoor, we're #1 in the food and beverage industry. And then our CEO has won multiple awards as well on Glassdoor. In Forbes, we're a top 10 company to work for in California. And then also best place to interview with on Glassdoor. And then numerous years in a row, we're also LGBTQ equality awards on Glassdoor. And then on Fairy God Boss, 4 years in a row, best place to work for women. And then we're also a major contributor to any Red Cross for California fires as well. Great, and then some ways that we have really stepped up as a company and given back during COVID-19. So Barefoot, which is the largest wine brand in the world, is one of our brands. We've donated $300,000 to the Children of Restaurant Employees, which is called CORE. We've also, one of our partnerships is with Barstool Sports. And during the first week of this program, we were able to raise $150,000 to the Bartenders Foundation. And then also one of our spirit facilities in Modesto, we closed down the brandy line in order to make hand sanitizer and give it out to local communities within Stanislaus. So numerous different ways that we've given back, but luckily our business is healthy, so we're making sure to give back to other industries and departments that are not doing as well right now during the pandemic. And we also have a number of different employee resource groups as well. So these serve as an opportunity really to provide professional developing, networking, outreach, and cultural enrichment. So these have really been around for over 6 years, and they consist of the Asian Society for Inclusion and Achievement. We also have GAN, which is Gallo African American Network, Women of Wine. The two largest employee resource groups that we have are GAN and Women of Wine. We also have La Casa, and then LGBTQ, and then, Gallo Veterans Organization, and also Enable, which is our disability network as well. So different employee resource groups that you can be a part of when you do join Gallo. And here's a look at what our portfolio looks like. So to give a quick snapshot, but before we dive in, I mentioned that Gallo's the largest winery in the world. So to put that in perspective of how large we actually are, 1 out of 4 bottles of wine sold in the US is actually a Gallo wine. So to put that in perspective of how large we are. And then now to take a dive into what brands we sell. So we sell over 100. These are definitely not all of them, but just a quick snapshot of what our domestic portfolio looks like. So we really carry wines from every major region, from Sonoma County to San Luis Obispo, and we also represent some very powerful brands. So Apothic, you might have heard this brand before, but the #1 red blend in the nation, and then I mentioned Barefoot as well, #1 wine brand in the world. And then a variety of other spirits as well, ranging from Scotch to vodka to Camarina. We also have a hard seltzer, which is High Noon, one of my favorite brands as well. So really something for everyone. And now to touch on what our opportunities look like. So here's our full-time opportunity for graduating seniors. So I know right now we're in the transition of what you'll be classified as next semester. But this is going to be for seniors, and you can apply next semester, which I would highly suggest in the fall. And then you wouldn't actually start until after you graduate. Or if you're someone that graduates in the spring, you can apply a semester early. So really you have 2 opportunities to apply if you are a spring graduate and you're a senior. So the first phase is a sales rep role. So like I mentioned, I'm in my 3rd phase of this program right now, and I'll dive into what the day in the life looks like for the sales rep role, but you're ultimately learning sales leadership for yourself. So you're working in grocery and drugstores in Southern California and selling in wine and spirit displays. And it's all face-to-face sales. So you sell displays in, then you also merchandise them creatively. And then the second phase is a district manager role. So in this role, you are learning sales leadership through a team. So instead of accomplishing those results yourself, you're doing it through others. And then phase 3, we think about, okay, what are your skill sets and your interests, and where would you be a best fit within sales? So it is an accelerated sales program that trains highly motivated leaders to become sales directors at E&J Gallo Winery. And what more of day in the life looks like. So you do have around 15 to 30 pre-established accounts. Your daily goals, so the biggest one that I mentioned is selling in wine and spirit displays. But secondary would be getting any items that you can in the cooler. So selling white wine, of course, cold is going to be a little better than on the shelf, or any spirits as well. And you're also building relationships. So I mentioned it's not cold calling sales, it's all face-to-face. So one of my favorite parts about being in this role is how fun it is to build relationships in a territory. So you see these main decision makers, usually it's a store manager, multiple times throughout the week. So you really do have the opportunity to get to know them and build those strong relationships. A bit about the unglamorous side of the job. So I think a lot of people, and at least when I first started working for Gallo, my friends knew that I was working for a winery and assumed you must drink wine all day at the wineries, and it seems very glamorous. So you are working in grocery stores, and sometimes they cannot be as glamorous. So it is also early morning. So 6 a.m. to 2:30 is typical start time. Some mornings might be earlier than that as well if there are days where you need to start early. And this is an essential worker job since we support the different grocery and drug stores. So as of right now, during the pandemic, our sales reps are being really careful to make sure that they're, number one, social distancing, wearing face masks, gloves as well, and we are giving them all the support they need. So we ask that you run your schedule as needed. Yes, you need to be in the stores no later than 6, but if you would like to go start the day earlier to avoid as much traffic as you can definitely do so. So ways that we are making sure to stay safe in the stores. And here's what a sale looks like from start to finish in the grocery store. So I mentioned you sell those displays in, you also get to merchandise it creatively, and here's some examples of what this looks like. We have some awesome partnerships so you can really make your displays come to life. And then the second phase in the sales leadership development program is a district manager. So this is when you are accomplishing results through others. You're managing, leading a team, driving sales results every month, and motivating your team to be the best sales reps that they can and hopefully get promoted to be district manager as well. And you're also innovating and building relationships within your territory as a manager. And then different opportunities after the district manager role, there's a variety of them. This is definitely not all of them, but the most common. So you can go into fine wine, spirit sales, go into a more shopper marketing position as well, go into training, recruiting. We really have a variety of different roles within sales because you're still working with customers one way or another. So you might not be selling wine as displays anymore, but you're still working with customers. Say in my role as a recruiting manager, I'm still working with different customers as well, just not in stores. And then our different training programs. So I get asked this a lot. Do you have to have sales experience to work for Gallo? No, you do not. So we give that really thorough training needed. And the best way that I can describe it for you is I would say it's a hybrid mostly of in-classroom training and then also in-field training. So we have different orientations that you will take part of when you first start with Gallo, and then also sales classes. So I've had the privilege to teach them a few times. They are really fun and thorough. So you'll learn different topics in sales class and then go and actually practice what you've learned in the field. We also have different fine wine training as well. When we have a new brand that we're selling, we want to make sure you're the experts of that brand. So we also have different product training as well. And then here's our internship program. So this is for juniors only. And again, if you will be a junior next semester, this would start summer 2021. And you would need to be 21 by the start of the internship. So by the latest, I would say like June 22nd. So you can apply if you're not 21 yet, but you would want to be 21 by the time it starts. And ultimately, this is a rotational internship program. So I went over all the 3 different phases of the full-time program. You'd be rotating through all those 3 different phases. For any of those who know Aiden Ryan, he's our USD intern that's currently working with us. So if you're his friend, give him a shout out and let him know. But he is currently working on his summer project as well. So he's rotating through all these different positions that we have, and then you get to work on a summer prompt. So his is alternative packaging. So he's collecting different research during the summer, and then after you present in front of our winery leadership on your findings and how we can improve our processes. So there's different prompts for every intern, and it's a real life business project. So you really have the opportunity to leave an impact even after the internship is wrapped up. After the internship, you do have the opportunity to work with us full time. So you would go into your senior year with the full-time job lined up, and you would step into the full-time opportunity. Great, so to touch on what the interview process looks like. So first step, you'd apply on Handshake. I will be posting the applications, I would say later summer period around August, so you have some time to apply before you start back to school again. So the first step would be a virtual interview. So if you are selected to move forward, of course, you'd be hearing back regardless to let you know. This is going to be 30 minutes with the recruiting manager, with myself, or one of my colleagues. And then the second round interview, it will most likely be virtual as well. And this is going to be for 1 hour. So 2 30-minute interviews with different hiring managers. And then a job shadow is the final step as well. It will most likely be virtual as well. And this is the last step. And then the decision is made, I would say, roughly around 1 month. It depends, if you apply in August, we typically don't have our application close until mid-October, but I would say roughly around a month or so to find out. And again, here's the different jobs you'd apply to. So if you are going to be a junior, it would be that internship program that you're eligible for. If you're a senior, next semester, graduating the fall or the spring, you would apply for the Sales Leadership Development Program. They will both be posted on Handshake, like I mentioned. And if you're someone who already graduated this semester in May, you would want to go to gallocareers.com. We do have opportunities posted that you can apply to. As of right now, you can go through the interview process, and once we do have a territory open, we would go ahead and move forward. But it's called a Wine and Spirits Sales Representative role. This is for only students who've already graduated. So there's where you would apply if you have already done so. Great, and here's that QR code again. If you're interested in staying in touch for the fall. So as we go through questions, I'll just keep this up on the screen as we go on. And the last QR code for the day I'm gonna throw at you is our Instagram. So I talked about Instagram a few times today, but we're really active on this to show, what we're doing, what we're up to, especially right now during where everything is really going virtual, to show you what we're up to and especially what our interns are up to this summer. Great, so now I want to take some time to answer any questions. I'll keep this up for you for those of you who haven't had a chance to fill out yet, and go ahead and answer questions.
Thank you, Allison. Great presentation.
Thank you.
So yes, students, if you have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat and I can vocalize them for you, or you can unmute yourselves and talk with Allison directly.
Don't be afraid.
While the students are thinking, one resource I wanted to let the students know about as well is if you want to practice your interviewing skills, you can utilize Interview Stream. It's a resource that the Career Development Center has through Handshake, and it allows you to record yourself on your computer talking through certain interview questions, and you can see if you're fiddling too much, if you're saying and just see how you kind of interact in a virtual setting interview. So it's a good way to kind of see how you can improve yourself for when you have an actual interview.
Cool, well, I will stay on here for a bit longer if anyone does have questions, but if you would like to ask me on LinkedIn, feel free to add me there as well. And I look forward to staying in touch with you all. I hope that this was something that gave you some new takeaways for best practices during a hiring freeze, and also how to best practices when you're networking virtually as well. So yeah, I'll give it a few more minutes, but if not, add me on LinkedIn and we can stay in touch, and hope to see you at a virtual event for the fall.
One question did come in. They are asking, is phase 1 of the job process solely commission-based like many other sales jobs?
It is not. So it is a salary role, but it's paid hourly. So luckily what that means is you're paid for any overtime. So if you're working overtime, you're paid at a time and a half. We don't have commission, but what we do have is sales incentives. So every month our sales priorities change. So typically there's around at least 5 different incentive trips that you can earn. So for example, like with Barefoot, we have an incentive during the springtime to win a trip to Stagecoach if you perform really well with Barefoot, since we're a sponsor for the event. So we also have different prizes with like electronics, if you say you hit a certain case goal. So like an Apple Watch or like different cool speakers, or trips for 2. So like an Angels game, trip for 2, or different, dinners like through gift cards and so on. But I know the sales team really gets pumped up about winning them and really competitive. So I think that, one of my favorite things about Gallo is our culture. And I think that I reflect on the different memories I've had, and some of my favorites are on those sales incentives, because you work really hard to accomplish those sales goals, and then you get to go on a trip with your different colleagues that have really worked really hard to be there as well. So it's definitely a great time to connect with your colleagues and have a great time out of work.
Thank you. Another question that came in was, you talked about opportunities for students graduating in spring 2022, but do you have opportunities for rising seniors graduating in spring 2021?
Yes, so if you are graduating next spring, that would be our full-time opportunity that you're eligible for. So you can apply in the fall, so this coming up semester, and you wouldn't actually start until after you graduate. So you can apply early in the fall. If you're given an offer, you can just know that you have it all lined up, your position all lined up after you graduate. Or others like to, wait for the spring to apply. You can apply then, and then of course, you wouldn't start until after you graduate. You'd most likely start in the summertime.
Thank you. Any other questions from students?
While people are thinking of questions, I wanted to briefly introduce myself as Diana Grant-Davey, the new Assistant Director of Employer Relations on the CDEV. So I wanted to share with you that Alison and some of her colleagues from Gallo, they'll also be representing at some of the career fairs coming up in the fall. So you can engage with them for more kind of one-to-one questions and learning more from them throughout those times. And we'll also be doing the Prepare for the Fair Career Cafe session. So you can spend that time working with employer reps and our team to really refine that pitch. So then when you do speak to Alison and her colleagues at those fairs, then you'll be perfect for that. So just letting you know about some of the upcoming opportunities.
Thank you, Diana. Yes, I'm excited if you go to those workshops and you can practice your elevator pitch with us at the career fair. Oh, another question we have I haven't been able to locate the career opportunity on Handshake for upcoming seniors. Is there a link? So if you will be a senior, I have not posted the job yet. So that's going to be posted in August time period. So I have the QR on the screen because I'll be sending you a personalized email reminder when I do post the position in the summertime period to say, hey, posted the application, feel free to apply before you go back to school. But typically it's posted for a few weeks before the application closes. Same thing for the intern as well. And then if I posted the career website, that's just for those that are already an alumni, so you graduated this May 2020. So that would be gallocareers.com, but totally disregard that if you're a student right now.
And I'll be following up too with an email for those who attended with the QR codes from Allison, so that you can, if you're struggling to get them now, you can make sure to do it later so you're on that list for when the jobs open up.
Another question, you have any full-time opportunities this fall for alumni? So we actually we promote entirely from within. So what that means for us is that we really recruit year round. We don't post the position. We typically have different like hiring cycles. So that's why we wait to post the position. But if you're an alumni, you've already graduated, we usually always have a wine and spirit sales rep role posted on gallocareers.com. Right now we have one job posted right there. I believe it's in the LA area. I wouldn't worry too much about location since that gets discussed later on through the interview process. We might have some openings in San Diego in the future. So to answer your question, yes, we do have opportunities. We most likely still will in the fall for alumni, and that'll always be on gallocareers.com. Cool. Any other questions? Thank you for those that are asking great questions.
I had a quick question for you too. I know that some students, based on conversations with career counselors, get to a point with LinkedIn where they can't send any more messages because of the credits. Is there other methods that you would recommend students utilize to reach out to recruiters when they're first getting introduced to them and trying to do informational interviews?
Yeah, so the LinkedIn is great method. Yes, you will run into that if you've met your limit. Of course, if you've already connected with them, you can send as many messages as you like. But what I had mentioned was I highly suggest if you have a professor that has had a guest speaker come in and you're really interested in working for that company, or there's someone at the Career Development Center who works very closely with an employer that you're interested in, really anyone on campus that is willing to endorse you and say, hey, I have a student that I think would be a great fit. They're a great peer in class. They get great grades and they're always engaged in the classroom, and they'd be willing to endorse you. This is also a great method and a great way to network, since I say you were doing it with Gallo and I haven't had the opportunity to meet you in person, but your professor has worked with you for a semester and would be willing to send your information my way to facilitate an introduction. This is a great way to get in touch with someone. And I mentioned, faculty and anyone on campus, but it can also be through a friend. So if you have a friend that's working with the company and they want to refer you, this is also a great way that you can connect. And this can be, a new hire, maybe someone that's been with the company for some time. So those are, I would say, the biggest ways that would be helpful, especially during the time right now.
Would social media be an option as well? So if you message the company through their social media networks?
Yeah, so typically a few years ago, if you were to ask that, Kelsey, people would probably say, no, that's unprofessional, because social media is more of like a personal platform, but times have changed. So we have definitely utilized our Instagram account more often. We sometimes do get direct messages with interested students. I would say that it is an option, but just be aware that your messages, we do get a lot of DMs on that account. So, and it's our Western region account, so it doesn't just include California. So your message might get lost. So it's not the most safe method. I would always send, I would say LinkedIn probably, or secondary email. I always say LinkedIn preferred, since I get a lot of emails as a recruiter. I think a lot of others do, so you don't want to get lost in that email thread. So but I think companies are much more active on social media than they used to be. So don't be afraid to add a company you're interested in getting in touch with.
Thank you. Okay. Last call for questions. Utilize the time while you have it. It's rare that you get to talk directly with a recruiter.
I've got a final question for you, Allison. What's your favorite experience from your time working at Gallo?
It's a really good question. If you made me say one, I would say I really enjoyed, I think my favorite, I have multiple favorite recruiting manager memories, but one moment that was really special to me was when I was a district manager coaching. That was my first time really stepping up as a leader And I really I had a large goal for my sales rep to meet. And I really wanted to, pump her up. So I got her favorite coffee. She came into my car and asked her what's her favorite pump up song. It was, of course, a Beyonce song that she loved to rock out to pump her up. I put her in the car with me, surprised her with her coffee, turned the song on, gave her a pump up speech to say, you can do this. I know it's an aggressive goal, but I believe in you. You're so talented. Gave her a little pep speech, and she was so grateful, and it was definitely one of my favorite memories. And she walked into the store really confident. She made the sale as well, and it was a great, I think, manager moment for me, and she's doing really well in her career as well. But it was one of my most favorite memories. And I've also had great memories too, just on different incentives that we've had, so different trips with my colleagues. I went to Sundance, which is a film festival in Utah, for any of those who have attended before, but it was a really cool experience that I probably wouldn't have purchased for myself, but I got to go with a lot of my colleagues, and that was a really unique experience. I've never been there before, so definitely one of my favorites as well.
Awesome, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Allison, so much for joining us today, and we're excited to hear what Gallo is doing during the COVID time. I think your tips were amazing for the students on what to do during this time too, when they have a little bit more downtime. And we're just really appreciative that you're here today. So thank you for your time, and students will be following up with an email so you have all this information at hand and can connect with Allison on LinkedIn too. So thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see all of you soon virtually at the career fairs this fall.
Yes, hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for hopping on today. I hope you all enjoy your summer break as well, and hopefully we can stay in touch and connect at the career fair.